All right, welcome back to the forum. I'm here with Bert and Thomas once again to dive into week 2 of college football. And man, since our preview show, Thomas and I got a big case of PAGD. It's a very, very serious virus called post-Aggie game depression. If you haven't heard of that, you got to get some meds for it. It's a big deal. But you know, our week 2 little bounce back was beating up on McNeese. I don't feel anything positive about that other than
Connor Wakeman went from the worst QBR in college in the country to the best QBR in the country.
Basically running routes on air, yes, but but he at least completed a ball past 5 yards. But anywho, but a lot of big games this weekend in week 2, and man, where do we start? Well, I think we got to start with what was the big noon Saturday matchup of Texas versus Michigan. Texas walking into the big house, the house of the defending champs, the house of the alleged cheaters.
Thank you.
Of Michigan. I gotta watch that doc that came out though. The doc.
No, you don't. That document's a waste of time.
Really? It is. It's not. It's all right. I mean, it's not even.
It's basically just a Michigan celebration parade, if you will. But
okay, I just heard Barstool Presidente was on that a bunch, so like I just felt like I needed to.
Yeah,
did
watch. You see? Okay, that we might as well just start talking about the game because Michigan came into this game like basically thinking that they were just going to win the whole deadgum thing, and it's like, oh, it's just a repeat of last year. And I'll tell you what, man, like you want to talk about shitting the bed? I mean, like, damn,
dude, that quarterback sucks. Well, I think Davis
it's almost
for Michigan, bro.
It's almost like they didn't know what play was coming. Like I don't know what to say. Like I will say that like coming into the season, I thought Michigan was still going to be a competitive team. I mean, you're seeing a team that's coming off a national championship, right? So the idea is the talent is definitely going to be down a little bit, but you're still going to be able to compete at a high level. But like to say Texas is just going to roll into your house and just completely own you in every aspect of the game, I don't think anybody really saw that coming. I know I was actually talking to one of my Longhorn friends, and he asked me, he said, what
you have one of those?
I know, it's hard to believe. They are around. All
right, I gotta mute his mic now. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
But basically he asked me, he says, what was my prediction for the score? And I said, you know, I told him, I said 34-17 Texas. And I told him afterward, I said, I'm scared because I can honestly see that gap being even closer, right? And in reality, it was even wider. So I don't really think that a whole lot of people saw Texas winning that game the way they wanted. And especially, you know,
you would have thought they were in Austin, by the way.
No, absolutely. And I will say, you know, one thing that really I think stood out with me is just how Texas played offensively. When it came to the offensive line, like I know since they announced they were going to be joining the SEC, they put a big emphasis on really beefing up that offensive line, and it showed on Saturday. And then not only that, you know, Quinn Ewers as well.
The experience there definitely helps out Texas a lot.
Yeah,
well, like, he has good decision making.
This is painful for me and Kohl to talk about, by the way.
I know it is.
Giving compliments to Texas, I had to take like 3 Tums before this to just prevent the acid reflux.
Look,
I gotta tip my cap.
Look, I realized that you know there was some bias in the room, so I felt like I needed to, you know, try to alleviate some of the compliments that you might be giving.
You know, instead of talking about what Texas did good, me and Kohl can hop on what Michigan did bad. So we can prevent on what Texas
and let's talk about
good.
that. And let's talk about here's the stats for this game, guys. Offensively, you wouldn't think that Michigan was as off as they were. 284 yards through the air. 204 yards through the air, 80 yards rushing, that's kind of where they were really
pitiful.
weak there.
But
they averaged 5.1 yards per play. They had 13 first downs. They were 3 of 12 on third down, which is really where the whole game went sideways.
Correction.
The crazy thing
Michigan went 3.7 yards a carry.
No. I said yards per play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
and 3.7 yards per carry ain't that bad, but
Edwards
yeah.
went 5.1 a carry.
Yeah. So the yards per play, just total offense was 5.1. So you would think that they're okay. But no, they fumbled, they threw 2 interceptions. And here's the thing, despite converting 2 fourth downs out of 3, the main thing was their problem was just not being able to convert on third down, whether if it was long or short, either 3 of 12, while Texas was 10 of 16. That kind of just shows you the experience and the ability to execute whenever the pressure is going on right there. Now, obviously, there's a ton of big plays that happened throughout that game, and obviously, Michigan's defense was definitely not there. Texas was just moving it at will against them, but in regard, I thought this game could be more of an offensive shootout, just given the fact of Michigan's traditional run game being really good, and it just fell off the cliff. The fact that they only had 80 rushing yards tells you that they have a whole new identity, or maybe just a whole new weakness in their identity. Like last year, they could just run the ball like
that's
point that we thought JJ McCarthy wasn't anywhere near an elite quarterback at all.
So I kind of want to piggyback off that, and I have to ask, we've seen a big change in the conferences, right? And the Big Ten is known to be a big time up front,
smash mouth
football. But the thing that I go back to what I said at the beginning. It's you have to give credit to Texas for being competitive with Michigan up front. I mean, they shut down that run.
I don't even think it was competitive. I just think
it wasn't
domination.
It wasn't, and that was my concern going into the game, was simply that Michigan was going to be able to bully Texas up front, especially considering what Texas lost in the draft, the NFL draft. I thought Michigan was going to have a little more success than they did.
I was watching that game, and at least in the first half, I was watching it. Then the A&M game came on, so I had to watch them beat up McNeese. But, dude, Davis Warren, the quarterback for Michigan, looked horrible. He was missing so many throws. He was running like a chicken with his head cut off. He did not look like a quarterback, that's for sure.
Frankly, us Aggies can really relate to that after week 1.
It made JJ look like Tom Brady. That's how bad he was.
Well, let's be honest here. I think you can put some blame there, but I think you should also put some blame on just the talent gap between Michigan's receivers and Texas secondary.
Yeah,
I think it's one thing to deliver the ball where it needs to go. It's another thing to have open receivers to throw to. That's one thing I really didn't notice a whole lot of was Michigan getting open, and I frankly I didn't really notice Michigan even attempting to throw the ball that much.
And I think towards the end, I think he got a bulk of his yards towards the end of the game whenever they started rotating everyone in and out. He could not, I swear to you, he could not throw. You think Connor Wigman was bad? Well, you can't get worse than him week 1, but dude, it was really bad. I don't think he made it a throw in the first half over maybe 10 yards. Completed. It was really bad. And then when you think of Michigan, you think of how they're hard-nosed, just pounding the rock down the field. For them to get only 82 yards the entire game when they're a run-first team is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Again, sucks, but you have to give Texas their props there for completely dominating them both on the offensive side and defensive side.
Well, I think really to kind of sum up this game and kind of bring a close to it is I think on Saturday you saw a pure example of Texas is going to be a contender, not only in the SEC but for the college football playoff. And I know that's painful for my fellow host to hear, but the fact of the reality is I could easily see where that Texas-Georgia game in a couple of weeks is going to determine who goes in as the number 1 overall seed to the CFP.
Let's go Bulldogs.
Good. But I think the other big takeaway from this game is is Michigan is not going to be what they were last year. They're
no.
not.
Sayonara.
Frankly, I
think
could
they're gonna
easily.
be a lot worse.
I could easily see where I don't think they'll be playing in the Big Ten championship game after what I saw on Saturday.
I don't think they'll get in the playoff.
I think, frankly, I think it's going to, at this point, I think it's going to be most likely you'll have Ohio State and either Penn State or USC. And
you could also sneak Oregon there too.
USC.
Well, we'll save Oregon for a little later.
Yeah.
But
all right. So speaking of depressed Aggies, terrible quarterback play, and an underwhelming offense, I've got a game for you. Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois, 14-16, with Northern Illinois absolutely running it down their throats
at home
the last
too.
couple minutes
Don't forget that
at Notre Dame's house,
Bend.
at their crib.
Oh,
and they sit there in the fourth quarter with 3-4 minutes to go, just run it down their throat, kick a chip shot field goal, and then Notre Dame, continues to not do what they couldn't do all game, and that's throw the ball. They have absolutely no passing game. Riley Leonard was 20 of 32, which sounds good, but it was only for 163 yards, which means his yards per catch or yards per reception was probably like all of 2.5 yards on that day with those numbers. He also had 2 interceptions. Not good. Just tremendously bad QB play on that end. But I think it also has to do with the fact that Notre Dame's receivers are also not good. So it's just kind of full circle of what Michigan was dealing with and also what A&M dealt with last week. But the other thing on this end was the other team's offense was also so mediocre that Notre Dame still had a shot to win it and still choked at the end. So
I will say this just really quickly. While we're touching on Notre Dame, I will say you guys got lucky not having an episode last week. I was about to rip on A&M, and I just
viewers, just so you know, he did rip on A&M just in our group chat. Okay, yeah. I got 30 seconds to just cry and weep after the game before my phone got lit up for the next 30 minutes. And honestly, Bert's words were more painful than the loss itself. I almost had to put my phone on airplane mode, and I almost actually set an SOS signal so that someone could just come take me away. Okay.
I will
for any of y'all that just don't have to deal with Bert Johnson. That's what it's like.
I apologize to all our viewers that content was robbed from you.
I will say to get back to the game. After
good pivot.
I was getting there. I was getting there. I really was.
I will say
I'll let Thomas go though.
This makes me think, is Riley Leonard really that guy? Because let's let quarterbacks can have bad games. I mean, shoot, me and Kohl know because of what Connor Wigman did against Notre Dame week 1. But when we look at what he did against NIU and then what he did against us, it wasn't like he was a freaking, all-American kind of quarterback like he was trying to look last year at Duke. Like that guy who beat Clemson, all these things. I mean, he hasn't looked good. I mean, from like Kohl mentioned, he went to 20 for 32 on his passes, only 163 yards, averaged about 5.1 per throw, 2 picks with a 25.8 QBR and a fumble. Like against NIU, credit NIU came to play, but dude. For a starting quarterback,
this is your
of a
pay-to-play
top,
game. You're money for this game.
You're a top 5 quarterback, and you didn't look the best against A&M. You were missing some pretty easy throws against A&M, whose defense actually showed up. So it's like, okay, maybe he had a bad game, but to do it again against NIU, to play arguably worse against NIU, I mean, that's not a concern now, but it's something that you have to think. It's like, oh shoot, is Riley Leonard actually going to be that guy this year? Is he going to be our Sam Hartman?
Well, I'll be honest. He's at this point after you lose to NIU, you're not going to be because
exactly
in college football, there's this smell test, I guess you can call it, and it's where your quality wins and where your quality losses. This is a bad quality loss. If you allow a team that lost in Northern Illinois into the playoffs, I mean, what does that say about the validity of your playoff? It just takes away from it. And frankly, I'll be honest. I think this game hurts A&M almost just as much as it hurts Notre Dame. Like you lost to a team that lost to Northern Illinois. I mean, that's it.
Trickle down lossonomics.
But it's okay because we're gonna win out the rest of the season and get in the playoff anyway. So
we can do the call. I know I'm starting to get into the college football math, but I'm just saying that
the bracketology.
College football, there's a lot of perception around it, right?
I mean, look at Florida State.
Exactly.
Dead. Program's dead. They're a JUCO now. They're a satellite school. They're done.
We can talk about Florida State here in a little bit too, but my main point that I wanted.
Same argument you could use for it's just 12 teams instead of 4.
Yeah.
Who's going to get 11 and 12?
So my main point that I wanted to make is give Northern Illinois all the credit in the world, right?
Absolutely.
But one thing that I really wanted to give them credit for is in this age of college football, all we really are seeing is these wide spread out offenses who want to go and throw the ball down the field and create space. And exactly. It's the Kyle Shanahan, Mike Leach type offenses, high octane, will light up a scoreboard. And Northern Illinois goes into that game and basically says, no, we're going to stick with old school football. You have been playing this high octane offense, heavy type of football, and we're just going to go in and we're going to pound the rock. And that's something that I think people need to take note of is the game of football is very cyclical, right? Between this cat and mouse offensive and defensive mindset, right? If I'm going to widen out conventional, unconventional, right? If I'm going to bring out everybody wide and I'm going to try to score a lot of points, if you get used to that style of football and then somebody shows up with a power I formation, most defenses will go, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? I have a safety playing down right next to a linebacker. What is this? Mm-hmm. So I think you really have to give a whole lot of coaching credit to Northern Illinois. They went in and challenged Notre Dame, and they said, "Yeah, you might be 4 or 5 stars, but we're going to pound the rock, and you're not going to know what to do."
And you saw that they actually wanted it. Like, they didn't just go in and just go willy-nilly, like, oh, of course, we're going to go ahead and lose. Like, they came to win. Like, they played hard. They played smart. I mean.
But frankly, I want to make this a point to every team in college football, right? Especially those non-blue-blooded teams, the teams that kind of get overlooked a little bit. Whenever college football is very a conventional game, right? Sometimes being a little bit different can trip up other teams, and that's what causes those upsets. So, again, all the credit in the world to NIU. It would not surprise me if this is one of those games that gets talked about for years and years and years and years and years. So
no, I agree. Just like A&M losing to App State has been and will continue to be talked about for years and years.
Well, here's the thing with that game. That wasn't as bad as the Notre Dame NIU game because Notre Dame was in the top 5. We were like not even in the top 15. I think.
Yeah, I don't even know if we were ranked at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that game wasn't as big. This is a huge deal because first off, like Bert was saying, before we pivot, Notre Dame, for the rest of the season until I think they have maybe one more ranked game versus like a game versus someone ranked. They pretty much have a cupcake schedule for the majority of the season. I mean, they only have 3 road games the entire year. So basically, after our game and maybe like 1 or 2 other games, they basically were going to get into the playoffs.
They have USC later in the year.
Thank you. They were basically guaranteed a playoff spot. With this loss, and basically I feel like after, not even that they're done, I feel like, because let's be honest. If they went out and they go out and beat USC, they could probably still get in with one loss. It's a big loss, but if they're still if they're 10 or 9, they'll get in. But this echoes, but that's a conversation for another day. This echoes to the entire country that they're basically fraud checked.
Yeah.
Which shows also, to get a little A&M in there, A&M played a bad game, and Notre Dame won by 10 points with a garbage time touchdown, right? So that just shows something that if A&M played a little bit better and maybe scored one more touchdown, that game would have been flipped on its head, and Notre Dame would have not known what to do.
There's a bunch of ifs and maybes from that first game with A&M. Like, you think about how many times we went to the red zone early and only got a field goal out of it when we had momentum.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of stuff you can talk about that. But at the end of the day, A&M's offense let them down, and the defense choked at the worst moment. It just comes down to that, right? So they can get better.
If our offense played maybe below average instead of horrible, I think we could have probably beat Notre Dame, which goes to say, with what happened with NIU, goes to support, hey, they're not that good this year.
Hey, can I kind of want to take a moment real quick here, and I want to go after somebody because I think everything that's being said really boils down to the AP poll, specifically in those early weeks in the preseason. Why do we even still have it? Mm-hmm. Because it means nothing, right? The only reason Notre Dame was ranked as highly as they were was because they beat A&M. And A&M sitting there with it, A&M was ranked, correct?
We were like
20, whatever.
Which as an Aggie, I didn't agree with that either. We had no business being top 25.
It doesn't matter where you were ranked or what, but these teams get continually the Alabamas and the Michigans and all these teams. They build up this top 25 at the beginning to build up the season, and I totally get it, right? You want to have an exciting week one. You want to have ranked matches.
It's all marketing.
In week one. It's marketing, right? But this is what you get, right? Everybody went into this week one basically saying, "Oh, Notre Dame and A&M are so good. They're so good. They're so good." And then you turn around in week two and this exact crap happens. Yeah. You have a top 5 team losing to nobody. And now everyone's talking about, oh, why was Notre Dame and A&M ranked in this college football, in the top 25 to begin with?
I don't even think that too. But then you see A&M absolutely curb stomp McNeese 52-7. And then you see Notre Dame lose, not to be completely biased towards A&M, but kind of playing to what Bert was saying. It's then you have A&M curb stomp the teams that they're supposed to curb stomp, and Notre Dame. It was like A&M and Notre Dame switched. How A&M used to lose. Well, we have the rest of the season, but would lose those easy win games, and then the top 5 teams would win out or whatever. How Notre Dame lost to the easy win teams, and A&M just went out and curb stomped, which shows we
would only get ranked wins when it didn't matter. With the last time we beat Alabama, we had lost to Arkansas a week prior.
Yeah,
well, in the same week.
I just think that,
and we lost Mississippi State too.
I won't touch on that, but whatever. I just think that we know which games are good, right? We know which games in week one have potential to be momentum, very
LSU,
big games
USC.
for the season.
Boom.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't hard, right? So why is it that we're sitting here? It's the same thing with the Heisman race, right? Why is it that we're sitting here ranking teams in September when the only teams that they've played is Cupcake U? Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be doing this at all. We should be waiting until at a minimum of second week of conference games before we even think about ranking it.
Well, the tough thing with that is when you're talking about programs with stats, right? I see both sides. I more see your side of saying this is pointless. But at the same time, there are people keeping stats of how many top 10 wins and top 25 wins a program gets. So the counter argument, just to play devil's advocate, I think you're right, but just devil's advocate, be like, okay, so for 2 weeks, like even if we get a big win, we don't get to count it as a top 10 win or a top 25 win or like a ranked win. That's the only argument towards it. Yes, is it just a beauty pageant that half the time is upended literally by the start of week 1 or in Florida State's case, week 0?
Well,
absolutely. And yes, it is pointless. It is just a pageant. Like,
here's my argument, though. It's all of that stuff, like preseason polls, they have effects in recruiting, correct? All of that stuff trickles down into the continual successes of programs, right?
Yeah.
And from a, like, I know I say this as a Mississippi State fan who doesn't have the blue blood and the NIL and whatever, right? But it pisses me off, right? Because you're not, at a certain point, you go into this beauty contest rather than actually looking and comparing the teams. I just think we want to make it as fair for everybody, correct? So let's not rank them, anybody, until we at least get to see apples to apples and have a better picture.
Here's the thing with
the true
that
rankings.
Those 25 numbers make a whole lot of this right here. Just 1, 2, 3 next to these teams' names make a whole lot of this because these matchups are a whole lot of this. Like, I will say that last thing before we kind of
transition.
Yeah, like LSU, I thought USC, not to go back to week 1, I'm not going to dive into it, but kind of to what Bert's point was, like week 1, LSU, USC, I thought USC was about to get blown out. Even with the quarterback
I thought USC was cooked. I thought they were cooked.
From Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think Nessmeyer, something like that. I don't know his first name. Played a great game. Like, he genuinely did play a great game. I don't think he's a bad quarterback at all. I think he was underrated, if anything, going into the season. And I think LSU is going to be a pretty good team. But, dude, USC, man, like, it turned into a shootout, and that's how the game went. It was entertaining. It was a great game, but so it's like a give and take thing, because, I mean, then you'll have those teams like Florida State who lost almost their entire offense. So they're still going to be ranked good because it's going off of the previous season, and now they're not even ranked after 2 games. So, but kind of transitioning.
And speaking of Florida State, no, I'm kidding.
No, but the game we do need to talk to.
Speaking of taking, Nebraska took Colorado's soul. Okay.
Oh my God.
And look, as a guy who does pull for the Buffs, even when they were like a 1-win team 3 years ago, because my cousin played there. So I liked them when they sucked, and now I like them when they still suck, but they sell a lot more merch.
Yeah.
But dude, it was just so frustrating because, like, I felt like in back-to-back weeks I had to watch one of my favorite teams just like do everything to kill themselves in this particular way, especially offensively. Like, if you look at their second half defense and really their defense throughout a whole game, if you tell me that Colorado's defense, with how bad they played last year, but and also how good their offense was last year, if you tell me, just doesn't matter the opponent, if you tell me that Colorado's defense holds anybody to 20, like effectively 21 points to defense, not counting the pick six, but if you're telling me their defense only gives up 3 touchdowns, I'm telling you Colorado wins by 2, like 2 touchdowns. But no. Their offense combined for, let's see here, a grand total of 260 total yards. 244 of those were passing the ball. They had 6 yards rushing. Their total rushing yards were negative on the day. There were 16 rushing yards, but there was a ton of negative. Like, at one point, they had negative 27 rushing yards. It was just terrible, the whole deal. And Shadur Sanders gave up an easy 7, just throwing a late comeback, but just hook route that just made no sense.
It wasn't even a good throw either. It was.
The spot was fine. It just took way too long. Like, I basically, like, if you're gonna throw that, he threw that ball at the time that you would have like looked it off and decided to run. That's when he finally released it. Like the guy, anywho. But
Get this,
I will
rushing
say,
stat from Shador. He rushed 8. He had 8 carries for negative 30 yards. He averaged negative 3.8 yards a carry in that game.
Homie was getting lit up,
which is crazy. But then you look on the other side of the ball, dude. Dylan Raiola. I mean, he had a pretty. I think he had an efficient game. He went 23 for 30. Only 185 yards, but he wasn't really launching it out there. A touchdown,
and they were going run first the whole.
Exactly. I mean, dude, when you're getting freaking as a team 4 yards a carry, dude, you're running that ball all day, every day. I mean, the Colorado D line didn't do nothing. I mean, they were practically. Do you know those matadors with the little red thing? It's like
the first half, like their defense really struggled.
Was the Bulls, and then they were just taking the little red thing and then just moving it so that they could like go to the touchdown. That's basically what they were doing. And you lost Shiloh. He broke his forearm and he had to get surgery, so he's out.
He's out for at least 6 weeks.
Your only good defensive player is Travis Hunter, and he isn't playing. He isn't playing every single position. Their corner
number 8 is pretty good. Their corner number 8 is pretty good. And they also had a good linebacker that was ejected from targeting that was warranted.
Now, their best safety isn't there. Shiloh isn't there anymore. They're going to just think.
Well, but here's the thing. They didn't, though. Like, when he went out, when it was midway through the second quarter, dude, the last score that they had on offense was with 6 minutes and 44 left in the second quarter. Their defense, I mean, obviously their defense was getting lit up in the first quarter.
Were they not?
Yeah, sure.
That was a rushing touchdown?
But what? The third touchdown? Scored? Yeah, it was a 1 yard run. Yeah.
Yeah. But so they were just chugging. They weren't throwing like crazy. Like the way Shador was.
When they tried, they weren't always successful. The main thing was just in general, like they did not score at all. No field goals, no nothing else after 6 minutes and 44 left in the second quarter. The only other thing they scored was the pick six in the I'm sorry. I had that twisted. The last time they scored was that with 40 seconds to go in the second quarter. After that, there was nothing else from them through the second half. And Colorado got the ball so many times, time after time after time, and just couldn't do anything with it. Just inefficient, so many sacks, all kinds of stuff.
Line was awful, bro.
Look, I have to jump in. Because this was my entire point with Colorado last season. It's the same point this season, right? Dion can put some talent out there, right? Mm-hmm. He just can't do it between the tackles. Yeah. And frankly, like I don't understand why he's having such a hard time doing it, because everywhere else, I mean, if Shador was playing anywhere other than Colorado,
it would not be close.
Travis Hunter, if he was at Florida State, which I believe where he was originally.
That's where he committed to before he flipped.
Oh my gosh! I mean,
he would have DJ Uiagalelei throwing to him.
Well, no, because he would have played. No, he would have played with Jordan Travis for 2 years before DJ.
That's true. That's a fair point.
But my entire point about Colorado is this: at a certain point, Shador and Travis, which is basically your entire team, are going to move on.
I will say, don't forget Jimmy Horn.
Don't forget Jimmy Horn. Don't forget the transfer they got from Vanderbilt. He's very good too.
Look, that's all fair. That's all fair.
Wester.
But the bottom line is this: Dion is about to have to answer some serious questions about whether he's capable of being a coach at D1.
Well,
if he is unable
scenario. I mean, like at the D1 FCS level, right? When he was at Jackson State, he did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal.
Yes, because at that level, like at Jackson State, when you have Division I level talent like Shador and Travis Hunter, I mean, those guys are two talents that are going to the NFL and will be highly drafted.
They will be top 10 picks. No doubt.
Talent discrepancy is so big that you don't need offensive linemen. You don't need defensive tackles. You don't need any interior linemen whatsoever. Now you don't have that luxury.
If they did,
I see
my
what you're saying.
question, my question is this, right? At a certain point, Dion has to produce. You
Yep.
have to get guys, and if
Yeah.
you keep losing games like this, this is Nebraska, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This isn't Georgia. This isn't Texas.
I will say
this isn't Ohio
Nebraska's
State.
offense the first 2 weeks with a true freshman quarterback has looked pretty good. Like
It has.
Their
I don't want
O-line
to I
looked
don't want to
phenomenal.
take away from
Well, yeah,
Nebraska.
against Colorado, it's going to.
Well, they also let me see who they
It's
week
tough.
one.
It's tough.
Oh, they
I
played
don't know what to
UTEP,
judge
but
here.
they played UTEP week one and blew them out.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. If Dion can't, I don't think Travis is gone. Travis Hunter and Shedeur.
Oh, they're gone. Well,
They're gone
Travis
after
is
this.
They're
Travis
going
is
pro.
gone anyways, but he's a junior. So if he wanted to, he could stay another year or transfer. But there's no way he's staying. Like, there's no way.
They're
Him
too
and
highly
Shedeur.
rated. They're gone.
Look,
yeah.
Look.
So
I'm going to go back to Colorado as far as expectations as how I was at the beginning of this year, which was I pretty much eliminated them from any kind of a conference championship, and that automatically eliminates them from the playoff. All we want to see from Colorado is progress, and that means get yourself to 6 wins, get to some kind of a tax slayer bowl game. I don't care how you do it. You've got one win.
I don't think they'll even.
I think you should have two. It just depends on how good Nebraska is.
I don't think they'll do that because they're in the Big 12, which is a lot harder than the Pac-12 last year. I mean, USC.
You're going up against Kansas State.
Kansas State, Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech. I don't know their schedule.
Baylor's not looking good right now, brother.
I bet you Baylor will beat Colorado.
And if they do, then we'll have our answer right there.
The talent.
Baylor gave they just played someone ranked, did they not?
They played USC and put up a whopping 12 points, brother.
Utah.
Sorry, not USC.
But Utah's a top 11 team in the country, though.
I understand that, but they don't have the best defense in the world, and Baylor couldn't even put up 12 there. I don't think Baylor's going to be an easy win for them, but I do think Colorado can beat them if it's an offensive shootout.
Here's the thing. Even if Baylor's offense didn't only put up 12, they held Utah to 23. It's not like they got blown out like 35, like the way Colorado did with Nebraska. Baylor hung in there. I think Baylor puts a smacking on Colorado, honestly, if they play. I don't know.
So here's the two things with Colorado that I'll note. Number one, I think thus far, just looking at how they played against Nebraska, and this sounds stupid, but I mean, we're comparing this to last year, to where it was like basketball scores every freaking game. I do think the addition of Warren Sapp as a defensive coordinator has made them better as a unit. I don't think they had any business giving up 26 points to North Dakota State, but I still saw some improvement in that game, and I saw a lot more improvement in this game. There was not a single half, I believe, last year that Colorado could say with any team, even their cupcake games, that they shut out a half. Okay, so, and I don't really think there was that many games that they only gave up 21 points on. I don't think there was any games that they held anyone to the teens. So,
well, here's the thing: It's not that they're still giving up a lot of points.
21 points against Nebraska, like any other Power 5 team.
26 against North Dakota State. Like, I don't know. They're playing Baylor. They play Kansas State, Arizona, which they're going to get absolutely.
UCF, Cincinnati.
Texas
Tech is going to be a steamroll for sure. Book it.
Then Utah's going to be a steamroll. Kansas is going to be a steamroll, and they finish off the year with Oklahoma State. I don't even think they make a bowl game. Honestly,
no. So here's the wins that I think are guaranteed for them. Okay, I don't think a bowl game. I got 40 seconds and then I'm done here, and we'll move on from this subject. But I do think they should be able to get Colorado State next week. Baylor will be a toss-up. UCF should be fine. Cincinnati, I think they'll be okay. And Texas Tech, they should steamroll them because Texas Tech looks like the absolute worst team in the conference. If they win, let's see, Colorado State, Baylor, UCF, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech, they make the bowl game. If they execute those games and they come out 6-6, I personally, I'm okay with that. They at least became a 500 team, and he walked into a 3 or 2 win team for your second season. That's not bad. At least you're going bowling again. It'll be the first time in I don't know how many years that you've even had a 500 season, whatever. The main thing that concerns me is the fact that their offense was that out of touch. I mean, just on all cylinders. Like last year, Shador got sacked a crap ton, but they still put up a lot of points. In this area, they had zero rushing, and half of that wasn't even the rushing game's fault. They just straight up weren't running the ball. Like they just it was just right or down the passing game. And the few times they did run the ball, like on that 4th and inches or whatever it was that they blew up, it was so telegraphed because it was obvious that it like you're going to run there. I would have rather them just kept throwing it in that scenario. Like they had the anywho. Nebraska's 3-3-5 they were running was literally the perfect defense to run against these guys because they could just send one of those three linebackers every play and get pressure with 4 if they just overloaded one side, force Shador to roll out to a side he's not comfortable with, and it worked beautifully. And their coverage was phenomenal. So it really was a nightmare for them. But even with all that, Colorado's offense from last year was clicking so well that Shador literally, I think, he led the entire NCAA in the amount of times he was sacked, but yet they still put up huge numbers on offense. So it's inexcusable to where they were that inefficient, that out of touch, made so many mistakes. And that's what's got me concerned. Like if they lost this from, like a 35-32 or 35-31 kind of deal, I'd be like, okay, whatever, chalk it up next week. I'm not that concerned because Nebraska does look really that good. It's the fact that in 4 quarters of football, a Colorado team with that much firepower on the receiving end put up 10. And it really was it really wasn't even a true 10. Like anywho, it was just very concerning. So I'm
speaking
just
of bad
that
football teams.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping they figure out the offensive end. I think they can. I don't know if they will though. I don't think the offensive line is 100% the reason because they were missing just everywhere. And I do think they need to throw in more RPOs and allow Shador to use his legs in the run game. But also, you've got a good, talented back in Hayden, number 7. Like, he's a very good athlete. You can set him up with some wide zone schemes to where your offensive line doesn't have to be superhuman. You can do some stuff. You can do some misdirection. You can do some GT combos there. There was none of that.
Cole,
the only runs they were doing, I'm almost done.
Keep it
rolling. The only runs they were doing was just basic zone schemes and maybe pulling an H-back. That's not going to create any misdirection against that front, especially with how talented Nebraska was on their D-line. Like, they had guys that were just eating up gaps left and right. Like, it was ridiculous. So I think Colorado has to implement some sort of a consistent run game, like at least 30% of the time. You can't go 90% pass the way they do. Okay, moving on. Florida State. Guys,
very quick.
Yeah, very, very quickly here. Florida State, I think the most disappointing thing of the season. I mean, they kept talking about this revenge tour. We should have been in playoffs last year.
And one of them was to freaking Bill O'Brien and Boston College. I will say
they lost to the butt chin. Okay, you can't go back when you lose to the butt chin.
I can't lie. Boston College. I don't know. So that meme where it was like they asked, I think, Russell Westbrook about did you guys did they win this game or did you guys lose this game? I was so confused by that question, like Russell Westbrook, and then it finally clicked. It's like, were you guys just that much better, or were they just that much worse, or were you that much worse, or were they that much better?
Yeah,
like
I can't tell.
I have no idea because Boston College, credit to them, they did not look bad. They actually looked pretty good.
No, they look great.
From last year where their quarterback threw 15 touchdowns and 14 picks, for him to play the way that he did, and he almost rushed for 1,000 yards that season. Like,
and I hate to say this is going to really be trouble to come out of my mouth, but Bill O'Brien he coached a good game. Good game. He
surprisingly,
he did okay, I can't finish that. You know what I tried to say there? As a Houston Texans fan, it's just tough to give him any kind of a compliment.
49% a good coach.
Yes. Yeah. No. He. I mean, they were well coached that game. Just
but
across
dang,
the board.
Florida State looked bad. Like
DJ
looked worse than Connor Wigman.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Okay. The whole story I see with Florida State, and this is the big glaring issue. It's DJ didn't work out at Clemson. He didn't work out at Washington State. Is that right? Or Oregon State, excuse me. Oregon State, excuse me. Probably not going to work out at Florida State either.
Yeah,
This
I'm
idea-
wondering how he got that role there too. Like they didn't have anybody else in the pipe, so you're taking him
I
after
don't know,
the
dude.
Oregon.
You
I don't know.
had Cam Ward.
Yeah,
You had
no,
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward was already at Miami last year though. He just got hurt.
He wasn't. He transferred this year. Like this is his first year here. I promise you, because he was about to go into the draft this year, and then he came back to go play for Miami.
The guy with the last name King, I think, right? Is that who I have mixed up with him?
Derek King. He's been out of the league for a couple of years.
That's what it was.
Dude, you had Cam Ward in there. Dude, and he's looking like a Heisman candidate right now.
Looking good.
Like, holy crap. That's a story for another day. But you had him in there, and you picked up DJ Uguli. Like,
XYZ. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't even know what XYZ is because he can't even
throw it to him.
Can't find it. He can't
even throw it to them. But, like, all of his passes look flat.
That was a fire line, by the way. I have to clip that.
Thanks. Dude, his passes look flat. They're inaccurate. He doesn't know how to run the ball to get out of the pocket. You almost feel bad for the receiver. There's a guy, I think he's a freshman. I think his last name's Pointer, I think. Bro, he played a great game. I think he had like 4 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown or something like that. But dude, DJ, and it was Yak. It was mostly Yak. So it wasn't even like DJ did anything. Or it was like a Anthony Richardson to an Alec Pierce from yesterday when the Colts played the Texans week 1, which was an amazing throw. But
it's Portier, I think, something like that. I don't know,
something like that.
Portier, I don't know. It sounds like a French wine.
It wasn't even DJ. Dude, Florida State. Long story short,
he was 21 of 42 on the night.
He's not gonna. They're not gonna make the. Long story short, overall wrap up. They're not making the playoffs. DJ looks horrible, and FSU is now back to the cold days after Jameis Winston left Florida State.
Yep. And they're dead. They're dead. Okay, they're dead.
Yeah.
They're dead or dying
in the water.
Through this North Rock. Yep.
No.
Well, that's kind of. I would say it's a pretty good wrap up. Also, I will say one notable thing was I was surprised that Georgia Tech lost to Syracuse a little bit. I thought they were looking like
McCord looked good, but that's
the quarterback.
Another story, another day.
Yeah, another day.
Yeah, that's the last thing I'll end with. I was just shocked with that. But yeah, all right, guys. Thank you guys for hopping on. For those of y'all listening, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with more college football and whatever else
Slash NFL.
Boat. Yep, we'll get that into. So I hope you guys are enjoying football being back. It just feels good, but it also hurts so good, especially if you're an Aggie fan. So, we stand with you. Me and Thomas do. Bert doesn't, but we stand with you. But
I'm on a worse team, so yeah, his expectations.
Yeah, but your team doesn't have expectations. Though, so you win either way. If you lose, hey, you know what we're supposed to. If we win, oh, fantastic! Like you were like when I was a Hornets fan back in 2018, when all they had was Kemba Walker and a prayer. That's the state I was in, and I loved it. It was awesome because I didn't get depressed after losses like we're supposed to.
It was rock bottom, and all you could go was up.
I will say,
Blake Shapen does look good for you. I think that was a good pickup.
I will say one quick thing about our game. I have never been more excited to see an 80-yard touchdown. That literally made my season. That's it. Cool. It was like literally I was jumping for joy. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Like I said,
look at that.
Me and Kohl are just happy that we were able to substitute our backup in. Because that's how much we were winning.
Yeah, if Wade was still playing the third quarter, it would have been bad. But for Mississippi State, the only thing I'll say is I think your quarterback play has improved. I think Shapen is good.
Hey.
So I think it'll be good.
I want the whole season to suck, frankly.
You're not going to get a draft pick out of it.
Don't tell me anything good about my team.
Bert is like us, Kohl. We could lose the entire season, but as long as we beat Texas, it's a win.
Oh, well, you're absolutely right. You're right.
In his mind, they could lose the entire season, but as long as they beat Ole Miss,
the season is a success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
for Bert, for our personal feud, if they beat A&M, the season is a success. But anywho, all right. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for hopping on. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.